Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our How To Corner. In today's episode, we'll be talking about who will return first, Michael Parsons or Patrick Mahomes. I'm Dr. Will Gray. Before we get started, please like, share, subscribe, comment, leave questions in the comments. And if you have any things you want us to address, we will definitely address those things also going forward. Now, let's get going. The agenda for today, we're going to actually talk about a case study that we're doing at this current time. And the reason we're doing this case study is because of the fact that two athletes that are very prominent in the NFL have gotten injured. One is taking a certain approach that I think is very novel to return, and the other one is pretty much going to probably follow the standard protocol. Now, the hypotheses that we're going to touch on is who comes back faster, Mahomes or Parsons? Why would one return faster? And then the expectation, who I think will return sooner. Now, let's hop in the case study. There are a few factors that are going to contribute to their recovery overall. Genetics. These are athletes at the highest level as far as their sport, and their actual genetic makeup, contributes to that. Whether that's their physical demeanor, their mental abilities, all those are inclusive, right? And then the rehab, the recovery, who's rehabbing you, how it's going, any setbacks or complications within the rehab, and obviously the surgery, whether it's good or bad. The joke is always being made that no surgery that you ever have, you will go to a follow up with a doc, and he will say it was a bad surgery. So we're going to assume that most of these surgeries that are going to occur are going to be good because they're going to have access to some of the top doctors. If I'm not mistaken, I think Patrick Mahomes just had his surgery done by Dr. Daniel Cooper out of Dallas. He's the head ortho for the Dallas Cowboys. I actually worked with the organization for a small amount of time doing one of my rotations, and I didn't get a chance to meet him, but I worked with some other doctors who do a lot of orthopedic surgeries for the Texas Rangers and so on and so forth. So these are some of the better surgeons and docs in the country. I know a lot of people are probably surprised that he didn't go with Dr. James Andrews or somebody you've heard before, but believe it or not, the transition of the medical power in the world of ortho has basically occurred, and you're going to hear a lot other names that come about who are younger, who are less known, and sometimes they want to keep it that way. But Dr. Daniel Cooper is reputable, from what I understand. Now, the compliance with that, meaning that after surgery, doing rehab, are they showing up? Are they doing everything they're supposed to do? And some people would say, well, why would they not do that? Why would they not want to recover and get back quicker? And why would they not follow the protocol and all this good stuff? Because they're human. I think a lot of us assume that since you get paid a lot of money to do this for a living, that you're going to be correct in everything you do. That's not necessarily the case. They have ups and downs. They can get to a point where they plateau, have a little, depression that sets in. So it's very normal. So the compliance is not just making the assumption they're going to follow through, but actually following through. And then last but not least, the playing position. I think the playing position, when it basically is considered for both of these athletes, is very, very, very pivotal in determining who returns fastest or who returns the soonest. Now, let's get to the hypothesis, okay? For me, when I'm thinking about what's going on and considering the two players involved, we obviously going to set our hypothesis. And the hypothesis is basically, who can return faster if you will allow that. Obviously, we have to choose something a little more specific, but you get it. It's in the realm of what we're trying to discuss and do and basically trying to figure out. So, who will return faster? Patrick Mahomes. How and why? Michael Parsons. How and why? And then, no, they both miss all of next season. And with that in mind, we want to basically expand on that. We're going to discuss that in detail. So the first person that we're going to address is Patrick Mahomes and his criteria for return. Now, we're going to focus on three different pillars within this conversation: the genetics, the recovery, plan, position, and style. The reason I want to include the genetics because I think people really underestimate how these athletes are pretty much wound, mentally as well as physically. These are elite level athletes. Patrick Mahomes is an elite level athlete, physically exceptional. He's not a quick twitch guy when it comes to just running. You've seen him run around and be very, very, very mobile, but at the same time, that's not his actual gift. His gift is his ability to be able to process fast and his massive arm talent. As a result, that's important to consider. Now, the recovery. The injury that he suffered doing that ACL tear, I say injury he suffered like singular, no, the injuries, is that he was diagnosed with a torn left ACL and LCL. Now, that LCL ligament is very, very, very hard to tear. Like, extremely hard to tear. It's very thick. But if you look at the actual mechanism of injury, kind of makes sense how his occurred. Now, that is something that is a little bit leery, but at the same time, such a thick ligament, there's certain things they'll do to make sure that it's stable, but that's still something to consider. Makes me wonder. Now, we have to consider that hopefully there's no complications with surgery or rehab, right? And the compliance with return to sport. The one thing that I hear too often is this 9 month, 9 month, 9 month deal when it comes to ACL recovery and rehab return to sport. When people say 9 months, they're probably just reporters or analysts, and some docs or some um, physical therapists will do it too. We all are susceptible to this. It's because faster means better in the world of orthopedics. And for me, it doesn't matter if faster means better. The truth of the matter is that the graft in said knee for said client slash patient is what you do not control. You do not control how the graft synthesis occur or how the actual lying down of the extracellular matrices happen. The reason you don't control that because that's just your natural healing. Just don't. You want to put certain stress on it, but at the same time, that too much stress can rupture the graft again during the recovery. So you are in a situation where fast is not always good. Okay, you have to really, really be careful because if you injure this thing twice, you're just different forever. It's not really a in between. Now, the surgery for Pat Mahomes. This is why this case study is so cool. His surgery happened immediately. He got injured on Sunday. He had a surgery on Monday. I've seen that like a handful of times, period. The reason that the surgery usually happens after a certain amount of time is because the amount of swelling in the knee. They don't want to do a surgical procedure when they have a lot of swelling in the knee because it's going to create even more swelling, which then impacts healing. Too much swelling, too much actual agitation to the joint can cause the joint to be delayed in healing. Don't let anybody fool you like it can. It all the way does. So him having the surgery immediately is what I'm really kind of pressed up against. I think that's interesting. Is it good? We don't know. Is it bad? We don't know, but we will follow this. Now, last piece of his actual criteria for return: the playing position slash style. He's a quarterback. Okay, they stand in the pocket and throw the ball. Now, the fact that he's not a statue is important because he does use his mobility to get around, to scramble, and I feel like he uses mobility a lot of times because he's a backfield creator when it comes to playing the position. He's an off script guy, and as a result, he can throw from the pocket, but Pat likes to move around. Now, with that, I think a lot of his scrambling was necessary because the Kansas City Chiefs did not have a run game. It was putrid, horrible. So he had to scramble because that's kind of how they produce rushing yards. Keeps the defense honest. They can't always just drop so many in coverage. Have to commit one to the actual box and so on and so forth. And the last thing about Pat, he throws on the run like no other, which puts a lot of torque on his actual body and his knee. Since his left knee slash ACL slash LCL was injured, the actual amount of thrust that actually occurs when he's transitioning weight from back leg to front leg, which his left leg would be his lead leg, is something to think about. Him rolling left, which right-handed quarterbacks don't like to do. That's not what they like to do. He's not throwing back across his body or towards the sideline rolling left. It requires a lot, way too much torque on his knee. So early, I'll be surprised if you see Pat do that. If he does that, it's just being irresponsible early in the return. Him rolling right, probably not as vicious of an actual movement for his left knee, but with him throwing on the run, who knows? Once Pat gets out there, he's going to be Pat. So there goes the whole return fast. Is it good? The whole surgery happening early, day after injury, is that good? There's so many factors to consider in his return, which makes you question his return and how fast it would happen. Now, let's talk about Micah. I love this particular conversation about Micah because his criteria for return is totally different. It's almost like this is one of the best case studies to have because they're so opposite. And if something happens that's different, it's something to consider, right? So Micah Parsons is an elite level athlete, just like Pat. He's more physically exceptional. If you just talk about the totality and how he plays the game of football, okay? He's definitely a quick twitch, explosive athlete. He's very fast and powerful. That's really Micah's whole ordeal. His ability at his size to play at the line of scrimmage and be as fast and explosive and as powerful as he is rare. I mean, super rare. He should not be doing what he's doing. Okay. Now, the recovery, right? His injury is pretty straightforward based on reports I have gathered and read. It's just his ACL. Because if you notice the nature of his injury versus Pat's injury, the mechanism of injury, Michael was non-contact, made a weird step, bam, went, right? Not as vicious of an issue with Pat. He was contacted, and that caused his injury. Now, the complications with surgery and rehab and his compliance and return to sport are all to be considered. You have to consider those. And last but not least, his surgery has not occurred. So it's going to delay his return, right? So in essence, he's already behind the eight ball a little bit in reference to Pat. Will it really, really affect overall? If he has the surgery within the next week or so, probably won't. But it's still something to count. Micah has an actual disadvantage in this aspect, but Pat has two torn ligaments in his knee, and as a result, Pat had the surgery early, which can negatively affect his actual recovery. And then the piece with Micah that I think is really, really interesting to consider. He plays DN slash linebacker. He's basically a rush in. And with his very high motor and the fact he chases down plays, he actually injured himself chasing down a play. And that he plays in the trenches against these mammoth of men, the offensive linemen, it's a different animal. He's having to hold a point of attack. He's having to push, pull, rip, bend, turn, twist. That's a lot of things that Micah's having to do that a lot of people don't realize that his ACL or his knee is is definitely a thing of importance for him because he depends on his legs so much for everything he does on the field. And that kind of gives you the premise of both athletes in the sense of what they are, what they're having to overcome, and who they are, and what positions they play in the world of football to set the basis of the expectation who will return sooner. Now, we know Pat Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs quarterback, franchise quarterback. He's a backfield creator, lower body impacts, upper body some, relies on his mobility at times. Him being a franchise guy, quarterbacks are treated totally different than any other position. He doesn't have to rush. He's only rushing because he's a football player. Like that's just kind of how he's geared, how he's wound it up. He's a warrior in a sense of the realm of football. So he wants to get back on the field with his guys and show his guys he's trying to get back. Now the piece with Micah, he's green. He plays for Green Bay Packers. He's a DN slash linebacker, pass rusher, playmaker, and relies on his athleticism. Is also a situation where he is in a space where he doesn't have to rush, but he has a certain window before Father Time starts tapping him on the shoulder. Quarterbacks play until like they're 40 something. Like Aaron Rodgers is 44. Like Father Time is on the field with him and he's still playing. So Micah's in a different space. As his athleticism starts to wane, it will affect the way he plays or how productive he is, just because of the position, which in turn puts him at a disadvantage where there's some push and pull here, right? The thing that helps him is that he got a new contract, so he's still of value, and he has an opportunity to be able to continue to build upon that value to possibly get another contract before his career ends. But this recovery from this injury is imperative, right? Now, I know everybody's waiting and trying to figure out who I think is going to return sooner, or maybe you have guessed it already on my stance. And if you have, great. So the winner, drum roll please, is Pat Mahomes. The fact that he plays a position that does not require him to use his lower body athleticism to be productive as much helps him. The fact he had the surgery earlier than Micah did helps him. And since he doesn't have a meniscus issue, based on what I've read, maybe he does, but based on what I've read, and he has two tears, true enough, LCL, very, very, very thick ligament, hard to tear. His actual ability to, how can I say this, circumvent the use of his legs some, and knowing that his arm is the most important thing when considering the position he plays, and don't be confused. I understand that his legs contribute to his accuracy and his pocket mobility. The problem, though, is that he doesn't rely on them because of his arm talent being what it is. Pat Mahomes can throw off of different platforms, can throw off of throw with different arm angles. There's so much about him that puts him at an advantage to return faster because of what the requirement is for him to play. Now, does that put him at risk? Yes. Does that make him susceptible to injure his knee again or injure the other knee? Sure. So when we're talking about who returns faster, it's not necessarily a good thing. It's just a great conversation because it's a thing that I want to explore. The surgery is what I'm interested in. I care about it being a day after. I care about it being a situation where he's going to start rehab immediately. That's normal, by the way. You pretty much start rehab day after surgery. I've seen people within 12 hours, within about less than 24 hours after the procedure has occurred. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, 24. As soon as I've seen someone, but I've seen people who've seen them earlier. So it's really that's not the thing that gets it for me. It's more of the procedure happening right after the injury, and for me, that's interesting to track. So yes, Pat Mahomes, in my opinion, will return faster than Micah Parsons. I hope Micah has a speedy recovery, and I really hope that Micah takes his time. Because if I'm Micah, I'm no rush. I've gotten paid. Let me get myself back to a place where I look very similar. Because once you come back and they start rolling the tape, man, I promise you're going to have to update your resume. And his career is going to be looked at a lot different than Pat will be. So they don't consider, certain things when they're paying quarterbacks versus when they're paying, rush ends. Although rush ends are very important in this league. It's a passing league. You got to have somebody who can pressure the quarterback, and Micah Parsons is exceptional at that. So, Micah, if you hear this, man, I hope you get back, man, full health, 100%. Pat, if you hear this, dude, hope you get back 100% also, full health, and get back out there slinging the ball. I know this year wasn't great for you. Mike, I know you were on a Super Bowl run, man, and let's hopefully that the team can go ahead and bring it on home. But overall, I want to thank everybody who made it to this particular point in the talk. I know we were a little bit long-winded today, but it was something that I felt like needed to be set up and talked about. We will track and update the progress of each athlete as it goes, as we can. And if you're looking for us, you can find us on all platforms. And please like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, go to our website, get on our contact us page, and send us some, questions or things that you maybe want us to help with. And with that being said, I hope you have a blessed one. I'll catch you in the next one.